What's up, everybody? Good to see you again. Today we're going to talk about pricing. So first I'm going to go over the kind of absolute minimums you need to be aware of when you're selling a product on eBay in order to have a profitable sale, right? And then I'm going to go over different strategies that people use with pricing, knowing those numbers we discussed. And then after that, I'll talk to you about how I price my items and the situations that come up because of that, okay? So first off, it's important that you understand the biggest fees associated with a sale on eBay. Anytime you sell something on eBay, you're gonna have to pay an insertion fee in order to have the item be for sale in the first place, right? But this is gonna be pretty minimum, like usually about like 5 cents, not that much. Then after that, you're gonna have a final value fee. And the final value fee is a percentage of the whole sale. So if the item sold for $100, that means that you're gonna pay a percentage of that sale price, right? And this includes shipping. So it's the total cost of the item, right? So it's typically 9.15%. That's how much eBay charges if you post an item on their website and it successfully sells. When you've sold an item, you also have to deal with a PayPal fee on top of that, right? So the biggest fee you have is this 9.15% eBay fee. And there are some situations where it's less than that and some situations where it's more than that, but typically it's 9.15%. You'll pay more than 9.15% if your account is on some kind of suspension and your eBay account is below standard because of defects. Then they're gonna up your final value fees, which can make it kind of hard to get out of, right? But all right, so we have the eBay fee and the PayPal fee. Those are the two biggest fees. And in total, those account for, the PayPal fee is 2.9%. So you have a 9.15% and then a 2.9%. You can say like 10 plus 3, 13%, right? So you have to remember that every time you sell something on eBay, in order to make that sale happen, you lose 13%, okay? So this means that you can't just sell something for the cost at the source. Like say you want to learn about this and you just want to practice and you just want to post items for the same cost that they are on like Walmart.com. You want to post them on eBay, right? You'd get a lot of sales that way, but you'd actually be losing money because you have to pay these fees to PayPal and eBay to make the transactions happen in the first place. So aside from that, anything in addition is usually profit. But depending on the scenario of the sale, the next biggest percentage that you lose is going to be to any tax that you pay when you purchase the item. Because typically when a drop-shipped listing sells, or when you're looking at the price, the repricer, and you're figuring out how much to sell the item for, typically you're going to be paying the cost of the item, any shipping, and then any sales tax. And the thing that's complicated about the sales tax is that it changes based on where your buyer's located. So your cost of item changes based on location. Whereas on eBay, it's always going to be the same cost for everybody as long as you can ship to them. So as long as they're in the continental US, right? So those are the biggest fees that you have to understand when you are figuring out how to do your pricing. You have the eBay fee, which is the biggest, 9.15%. Then you have the PayPal fee, which is actually not the sales tax can be bigger than the PayPal fee, but the PayPal fee you can't work around. That's 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction, right? So then after that, you have any sales tax that you would pay on the item. There are ways to get sales tax exemption in certain scenarios where you're not, because you're reselling the item, you don't necessarily have to pay it at that time, and there's a whole lot you can do with sales tax. So for some people, depending on your source, you might pay like 6 or 7% extra on some orders to sales tax because it's to a really expensive area, right? Whereas in some scenarios, like with Walmart, it's pretty easy to get tax exemption, and then there's only a couple states where you have to pay sales tax. So it still comes up, but only like a fifth as often, because on most states you can get tax exemption, right? So depending on your source, this will completely change your experience with sales tax. So it really depends on what you're doing, right? But if you understand those three things, that you're gonna have to pay PayPal, you're gonna have to pay eBay, and that you're gonna have to pay some kind of sales tax unique to the location of the item, right? If you can keep these in mind, then that's gonna help you avoid having sales where you're losing money. When people start, a lot of the time, they don't understand that you have to pay those fees, so therefore there is this thing called a break-even point, which is the point where you have paid all of the fees to get the sale to happen, but you don't have any profit, right? Because you've made the sale, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was a profitable sale. The break-even point is the point where the sale is made and you're not losing money, but you're not making money either. That's what's referred to as break-even, right? So now that we understand those are the numbers we really need to be aware of, now we can go into what different strategies people use with that being said. What you will find is that most drop shippers, and I'm not saying most successful drop shippers, I'm saying most drop shippers use very, very, very small margins and try and be highly, highly, highly competitive. That doesn't mean that you have to use small margins. That's the thing, is like you can earn a lot of money from a small margin item selling over and over and over and over and over again, especially if you've established virtual assistants and some system to handle it so you're not actively involved. But that doesn't mean that you can't make individual sales that are very profitable. It is possible to make sales happen that actually have really high margins. And I think one of the more interesting parts about dropshipping is more about learning how to get those to happen. But there's a whole bunch of different strategies that people use, and ultimately, like, you just got to figure out what you are actively most interested in, what makes the most sense to you, and learn from other people, but ultimately make the decision that, you know, is most relatable to you. It's going to be different depending on what you do. Because some people want tons of sales and a little bit of profit per sale. And they don't mind spending tons and tons of time processing that. Or they have the time to spend, or they have a system to spend that time. So to them, it doesn't matter if it's only like a couple dollars per sale or something, or a couple pennies in some situations, which is crazy. What you find is that the smaller your profit margins are, the more reliably you can produce sales, even when there's big changes with eBay and yada yada, which makes sense because you're not making money, right? So one of the more kind of advanced things that you can do as a dropshipper is learn how to make money on the back end of the cash flow that's created by the dropshipping business. And I'm not going to get too much into that, but just be open to understanding that if you can get sales to be happening, you can work with that and you can monetize it. Maybe not as maybe you won't necessarily earn the money from profit from the sales, but that doesn't mean that you can't be profitable. Like, there's a whole lot of different scenarios here, and I'm being really abstract, so let me be a little bit more specific. Take, for example, okay, a lot of the work that I do with bulk dropshipping, like, one of the reasons I'm able to consistently do it and keep up with it is because it gives me information that allows me to run the YouTube channel and, like, have things to have content about, and it gives me a lot of data, right? So there's this other value to it than the profit from the actual act of doing it, right? Because in my scenario, the act of bringing more dropshipping sales into my life gives me information that I can monetize, right? So it's not as simple as just like, okay, I have this sale, I make this much money of this sale, and I just have a bunch of these sales, right? But that's for me, right? That's the kind of strategy that I have. Whereas there are other scenarios, right, where imagine that you you are running a dropshipping business and you are not using high margins. So you're using really low margins, and you are just getting the cash flow to happen, right? There's then ways to use gift cards and credit card cashback and all sorts of stuff. And even if you can get something like 5% cashback, right? That isn't much unless you're able to scale something to be like doing 100K in transactions a month or something. If you're able to do that, then that 5%, that becomes like, you know, that's $5,000. That's a lot of money, right? So there's a lot that you can do with cash flow, and it's very, very, very empowering for when it comes to the like more opportunities in your own life, even for simple things like with PayPal. Once you have an established history with PayPal and you've had a lot of transactions coming in, etc., you can get working capital loans. And so when you're eligible for these loans, some of them are big. Like, there's been multiple opportunities where I could have gotten a $20,000, $30,000 working capital loan, and it's a really cheap loan. It's a really good, like, I've been aware of the fact that, hey, if I wanted to do something like physically or something with this money in a business sense, I now have access to this kind of loan, and you pay it back just through percentages of incoming PayPal transactions, not through having like a monthly payment. And the rate on the working capital loan is really good. Like, I remember looking at it, and it's close, way closer to being free than the amount of money you would typically spend on a loan, right? Like, it's not uncommon to spend like $100 on a $1,000 loan, right? But with working capital, it was really cheap. It was like $20 for every grand or something like that. So I got a little bit sidetracked there, but my point is that when you're thinking about pricing, in order to figure out the best way for you to price your items, you have to think about what you're trying to accomplish with this business. Are you trying to make most of your money from the profit from the sales? In which case, you know, you should decide, what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on having a lot of sales of individual items and earning money that way, or having fewer sales but the sales are more profitable and earning money that way? It really depends what you're interested in and what your goals are. In my case, I've always preferred to price my items higher, so that each sale itself is more rewarding. But that's just because of, like, for me, dropshipping gives me something to do every day. It gives me some structure in my life, and it's more rewarding and incentivizing, and it feels better if the sales are earning, you know, between like $5 and $50 a sale instead of a couple dollars per sale, right? But on the other hand, say that you get into doing more of these repetitive, lower profit per sale sales, then it's more routine and more regular, and you can earn a lot of money doing it that way. So it's absolutely a very viable strategy, like absolutely. It just depends what you want. Like, what do you want from this dropshipping endeavor that you're doing in your life? What are you trying to accomplish? These are all things that you need to keep in mind when you are figuring out what your pricing is going to be. So now that we've talked about this, that it's not as simple as, okay, this person's either earning money from the sale or they're not. Like, there's a lot of other opportunities to monetize these sales, right? And this workflow. So it's not necessarily that simple. But now that you understand, there's a couple different ways you can go about this stuff. Let's now talk about how I choose to do my pricing. And I'll also give you a quick number that you can use. So if you are using just a general source, you're new into dropshipping, the simplest way is to take shipping cost plus item cost and then multiply that by 1.4, or if you have like sales tax exemption, then 1.35. That's a pretty good like standard go-to. And then if you feel comfortable and you want to play around with that, you have the ability to lower it if you want, or you have the ability to raise it. It's a good 1.4, a 1.4 markup is a good reference point for people who are new and just need a number to price their items at so that they can know, right? If you price it at 1.4, even if the item is repriced and becomes like 10% more expensive and it's in a state that charges high sales tax, then you're probably gonna like either break even or earn like $1 or something. It gives you a lot of wiggle room for any mistakes that you might make if you're new into it. So 1.4 is definitely the best kind of standard to go off of. Because again, you can take it either way. You could find out that you prefer to have more sales, so you want to drive that markup down, or that you're comfortable with it and there's certain items that you've put a lot of time and attention into and you know that they're worth selling for more, or you're the only one getting it or whatever, so you want to increase the markup, right? So now you understand 1.4 is a pretty good guide. It's a pretty good go-to for beginners, okay? Now let me explain how pricing in my situation works. So whenever I do pricing, I don't want one particular kind of sale that I'm just trying to get to happen over and over again. I like having a variety in the kinds of sales that I get. So an easy way to accomplish this is to set your repricer or whatever tool you use to list or check your items, is to set it to... You want it to manually add a fixed amount to the price no matter what. So this is going to sound a bit weird because it's increasing the price of the item. But what this means is that, say that you have a $10 cost item and it costs $6 to ship. That's a $16 item. When that item is bought in quantities of 3 or 4 or 5, right? You still only have to pay shipping cost once. Also, a lot of items for sale on Walmart are also for sale on, sorry, car alarm, are a lot of items that are for sale on Walmart are also for sale on Amazon, and they're often price matched. The thing here is that Walmart has a shipping charge if it's under $35, whereas Amazon does not. It's free shipping. So that means that it is $6 cheaper if you are able to find the item on Amazon in these scenarios, right? So what I do is I post items and I use that 1.35 markup with sales tax, right? But there's part of the repricer that manually adds 6 to the price before it increases the price. And so this means that every item, if it's a $10 item, then the repricer adds 6, so it's 16, and then it multiplies it by the markup, right? This means that my items are a bit more expensive when a person buys a one quantity order, right? And the sale's gonna earn, like, on average, those kind of sales earn like $3 or $4. The second they buy 2, that jumps up to about, like, you have that $6 shipping cost you've priced for, but then you don't have to pay anymore, right? So then it goes from, instead of profiting $4, you profit the 4 that you profited before, so that's 8 plus 6, right? So it goes from $4 of profit for the one quantity sale to 8 plus 6 to $14 for the 2 quantity sale. So the second it becomes a 2 quantity sale, it becomes a percentage more profitable than it was before. So what this means is that you get these different scenarios of sales in your workflow. Instead of having an item that's just every time it sells, it profits a certain amount, you get these multi-quantity sales along with these sales that can be sourced from Amazon, and those sales are really profitable. And for me, I like having those like individual sales that are really profitable because it's exciting and more interesting to figure out how can I earn like 40, 50 bucks from a sale without having a lot of risk as well. Like how I love that part is like trying to figure out how, because I've been able to get incredibly profitable sales to happen. The thing is that I pay so much to insertion fees in order to make that happen in the first place. But technically, I wouldn't need to post all of those items. I just needed to have that one item at that right quantity, at that right place, at the right time. So I know that it's possible to get these sales to happen. I just need to expose myself to more information and really learn how to milk that part of it more. But again, that's just what I'm interested in. Ultimately, pricing boils down to what you're trying to accomplish with your business, what kind of work you want to do, whether you have virtual assistants, and all of these kind of things. But as a general rule of thumb, 1.4 is a good markup. If you're beginning and you're struggling and you're not sure what you should price things for, then go with 1.4. It's a good go-to, and you can experiment with it past that, right? All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I apologize, my hand is so jittery. I had a lot of coffee before recording this, and yeah, it's what makes it go like, woo, like shift, right? Bye.